So this weekend was chock full of wrestling happenings, especially inside the ring, but then outside the ring just happens to dominate the story cycle. And to help me break it all down, he is the host of the Big Audio Nightmare. He is the host of the Mid-Atlantic Championship Podcast, the Wrestling News, and you hear him weekdays with Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer Live. And say it with me, he is the voice of reason for that very fine program. It is Mike Sempervive. Follow him on X at Sempervive. Mike, have you gotten any sleep this weekend?
No, I have not. And I told you before we went on the air, wrestling be damned with this being the first full week of college American collegiate semi-professional football. I was ready, and I was not going to let anything spoil that. And of course, it was a hurricane-like deluge of wrestling, and I didn't care. I was still going to fight through it and watch as much football as possible. And what I had to sacrifice was family time. They know how this goes, so they were fine with that, and sleep. So I'm going to, as soon as this show's over, I'm going to sleep. And I'll wake up probably right in time for Wrestling Observer Live tomorrow because, hey, I mean, this is the best time of year. And then obviously going into this coming Sunday. So, I mean, for guys like us,
Yeah.
I mean, does it really get any better than this right now? I mean, it's fantastic. We got content, whether we want it or not, when it comes to CM Punk and everything taking place in wrestling. And then we got everything, single storyline coming out of, God knows how many college football teams.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, all right. So Saturday, I'm at DKR Texas Memorial Stadium watching the Texas Longhorns beat up on the Rice Owls. Quinn Ewers still needs to figure out how to not overthrow, but that's another story. And I'm scrolling on my phone, and sure enough, there's this statement from All Elite Wrestling and Tony Khan, and it reads, and I quote, All Elite Wrestling has terminated the wrestler and employment agreements between Phillip Brooks, CM Punk, and AEW with cause effective immediately. The termination was confirmed today by Tony Khan, CEO, General Manager, and Head of Creative of AEW. The termination follows a week-long internal investigation of an incident occurring backstage at AEW All In London on Sunday, August 27th. Following the investigation, the AEW Discipline Committee met and later convened with outside legal counsel before making a unanimous recommendation to Khan that CM Punk be terminated with cause. And he goes on and gives, and Tony has a statement. So Mike, give me your reaction now that we've had a couple days to digest this. Give me your reaction to CM Punk being fired by AEW for cause.
Seemed inevitable, didn't it? To me, it did at least. At some point along the line, CM Punk was not going to make it all 4 or 5 years, whatever his contract is. He got into year 2. And with everything that took place, I just didn't think he was going to make it the whole tenure. Now, what I also did not believe was he was going to quit. And I know a lot of those rumblings have come around since all of this has happened, where maybe he was looking for a way out. Maybe he had no, issue with pushing the buttons or getting fired up because what's the worst that happen? What are you going to do? Get rid of me? I don't care at this point, sort of thing. But he wasn't going to quit. If he quits, they win. And he loses his money. He was not going to quit. He was going to ride that out, try to ride out his show Collision as much as he possibly could. But one of the more interesting parts about that statement is he was terminated with cause and his contracts, plural.
Yes.
What exactly was the deal there? A lot of people wonder very early on, did Punk have a stake in this company? The way he was talking, the way Tony was doing things, the whole deal with Cole Cabana, which is it a matter of semantics? Is it a matter of what, all that stuff? what, how much of a stake does Punk have? And we know at the very least, he had that TV show. He had Collision. He had the power to book that show. He had the power to tell people if he wanted them there or not, including the head of talent relations, which to me was a big breakdown. I don't care if Christopher Daniels was serving as an agent and that's why Punk didn't want him there. That was something that, like, later on down the line when the story's told, boy, I'd like a clearer picture on that. Although I'd like a clearer picture on a lot of the stuff that happened. But one thing we knew for sure was CM Punk put hands on Jack Perry. It was just a matter of how that went down and what took place. And as we found out, it was a lot more dramatic than just, hands and face, put him in a guillotine. There was a lunge at Tony Khan. Monitors were knocked down. Samoa Joe's there trying to keep peace. You have people there, witnesses seeing this. You have AEW wrestlers. You have AEW employees. You have people who are not employees, who are, either part of Wembley's staff or whatever. A whole lot of people saw this, and there were obviously security cameras that saw it too. And it just started to seem like, okay, well, obviously something's going to have to be decided here. But I think it was Thursday when the report came out from Fightful initially that, okay, there were cameras, and it was like, okay, this is going to say it all, because whoever the aggressor was and exactly how this went down, we're going to have to probably, somebody at some point is going to have to put a foot down. We finally got a foot that actually got put down here, with CM Punk being fired and with Jack Perry still not on TV, and it is indefinite right now, and who knows exactly what that's going to be. But there were a lot of people there who were tired of all of this stuff, who were not on either side, that had been just grinding their teeth. They were doing it before, and it just seems to be, that thing that keeps popping up again that you can't get rid of. And, at least for those people who aren't on any side, who just want to go to work and actually, try to benefit from this and not have to deal with that nonsense, at least they're going to be happy. Is it going to make the people happy who have picked sides? No. Is it going to make the people who want a complete story happy? No, because we're not going to know. There's legal issues behind this. Tony Khan is not going to talk about it. He is now famous for that. So, again, there are a lot more questions still than answers, but we have some finality, we think, right now when it comes to CM Punk. Does he lawyer up? Does he fight this? Again, where this may very well not be over with yet. Forgetting about just what the story we've had, we may still have more story to go, but we'll see.
Yeah. I will tell you that. So when he came back, when Tony brought him back, June, I guess, my initial reaction was, I hope they can make money. I hope they can find some way of making peace. But I'll be honest, I was nervous about what could happen going the other way, and sure enough, that's what happened. I will tell you that it was interesting. So I was at the Cauliflower Alley Club award reunion last week in Las Vegas. CM Punk was awarded the Iron Mike Mazurki Award, which is their highest honor, and he gave an acceptance speech. It went just over 40 minutes, and it's on our YouTube page. Search Sports Guys Talking Wrestling, and it was a fine speech. He didn't take any pot shots, at least none that I could tell. Told a lot of stories, including some stories from when he was in WWE. Did not mention AEW once. Didn't mention All Elite Wrestling. Didn't mention Tony Khan. There was no reference to AEW whatsoever in that 40+ minute speech. Of course, this was last Wednesday. So you're talking Monday. So right at 72 hours after what happened at All In. When he came back in June, did you have it just personally, did you have any feeling that this might not be a good move?
Yes and no. I knew it would be good for ratings. I knew it would be good for attention. I knew it would be good for tension. If you're a proponent of that in a locker room, to feed off of, you need a little bit of push pull. There was going to be all that sort of stuff. And I was kind of hopeful that, okay, he and the Young Bucks don't have to get on the same page, but I could see him and Kenny Omega individually being maybe not on the same page, but being able to work with each other. And we'll see with him having a whole separate show with Collision. Okay, in a way that could benefit some people as we fast forward, we're going to see with Brian Danielson, who wants to be home with his kids all week, can do Saturday. So, like, there was the way it was going, it's like on paper, you could be bullish about it on paper. But the problem was because of the personalities involved, because of the pettiness involved. Let's just be honest here. And that's, is a lot of it just everyday work pettiness? Yeah, it's just on, I don't want to say on steroids. It used to be an old expression, but, certainly on caffeine drinks or whatever the kids are, got now. Like, it was going to be a problem. There was going to be problems as the thing moved along the line. And it was just hard not to believe that because, again, unless the whole thing was calm seas, again, prove it to me that it's going to actually work and be okay. And they couldn't. And right off the bat, that ESPN interview. And look, CM Punk has got, in my opinion, there are a lot of things where if you're looking at this plane, I think he's got, I don't want to say, I'm not saying a good case here, but the interview happens with ESPN with Mark Raimondi, right? And they know it's going to happen. They set it up. In interviews like this, when they're set up like this, you kind of know, don't ask this about this, or you'll never get an interview again. But look, nothing's off limits, but, sort of thing. So there were only so much that Raimondi was going to be able to ask him. Certainly not a whole lot about the fight. There were legal issues, all that sort of stuff. But CM Punk does this interview because AEW wants him to do this interview. He's the only one out there doing media for that show. The interview with Raimondi happens immediately. Now, Stu, in a situation like this, there should be representatives from AEW there, right? Some from the media team. And what are they there for? They're there to make sure nothing goes sideways, right? They're there to make sure that nothing that happens there leaks out and makes things go sideways. Yeah. What happened? Immediately, it goes sideways. Was Raimondi, were there things deleted? I don't know. They say they weren't. I'll just say there seems to be a lot of skepticism, or at least there was at the time, a lot of skepticism over how much Raimondi was allowed to ask. Were things, later on asked to be taken out, all that push-pull sort of stuff. I don't know, but what I do know is everybody heard about it, which means your media guys said something because it wasn't Punk. So it was either Punk or Raimondi. And Raimondi, if he's saying it's not him, the media got, because it went to the locker room. And that was a mess. This is how this thing starts back up again. And there are plenty of things like this, and I don't know what the answer is. But what I do know is there has been a culture issue. There was apparently issues at Fulham. I don't know enough about soccer to know that. I do know what the Jacksonville Jaguars have been and how they have been perceived and the issues they have had with a number of players. And granted, some of that was under the Coughlin regime, but the fact of the matter is there was a Coughlin regime that, obviously created issues with the Fournettes, with the Ramseys, with the who was it, Miles Jack. There were plenty of guys who had issues there that wanted to get the hell out of there. This past year with the NFLPA ratings, they rank so low in so many things. And everybody says the same thing. The same thing they say about Shad, they say about Tony. He's the nicest guy in the world. I met him. You've met him. The nicest guy. Very nice. Great. There is some sort of breakdown that needs to be fixed like now. And I know it's a new generation. They talk. They're more sensitive. This, that, and the third. but it leaks like a sieve. There were wrestlers on AEW from AEW, and I'm not going to mention any names because, again, everybody's in their feelings at that moment when they do something or say something. It's hard anymore to kind of kill people for that in this age that's what we want to do. That's what we want these people to do so we can respond to it. So I don't really hang them out for that, but it's like, yeah, everybody says, this, that, there's always this issue or that issue, and then we put on a great show. Maybe if the locker room shut up, this would be a lot better off. Maybe if everybody did not have to have a funnel to someone, this would be better off. It happened with Ian Riccaboni, apparently, with that Voices of Wrestling server thing, with the stuff with Kevin Kelly. I saw that late. I was way late to come to that one, but it's like, again, and I'm not, again, it's Ian in the moment. Maybe he thought it was private, whatever. And it is, craptastic that somebody put that out there if it was on a private deal. But why are you, who needs to know that? Yeah. Who needed to know that? Did you, and to, if you're putting it out there, why couldn't you put it up? But again, it was probably whatever it was that it happened. But it's another example of it has been issue after issue after issue after issue, and people that don't like to hear this, they don't like hearing this, especially if they're very anti-Punk. But a lot of this probably could have had some more boot on the neck of it if somebody would have come down on Hangman Adam Page with the workers' rights deal, because that was the part of all of this. Because I would have, and I don't know this, Stu, if Tony Khan would have said, listen, Adam, you're going to be suspended for this. I've got to prove a point here, because what you need to understand is I didn't fire, or CM Punk did not get Colt Cabana fired. Tony Khan said that. He has said that. CM Punk's side has said that since day one. Where did this come from? Well, it might be a semantics issue because his contract wasn't going to be renewed. So those guys look at it as him being fired. Tony Khan could have come up, and if he didn't, he should have, to everybody there, go, look, I made you guys EVPs. I did this, I did that. You know where my heart is. You know what this is about, but this is also business. I didn't do it. He didn't do it. It's on me. Don't ever say that on my air again. You're suspended for right now. Soft. Nobody needs to know about it, but I got to prove a point. Yeah. And if this blows up in my face, then fine. And the thing was, it was going to anyway. It was Bruce poking back and forth. It was just oil and water. You saw it after the initial fight where Jungle Boy's mocking it. MJF is mocking it. They were going to push both ways, and it was going to be, Punk can't stop but be annoyed by this stuff, and he can't help but respond to it and talk in his truth, and the same thing on the other side. CM Punk needed to be a lot more professional, and frankly, you need to let a lot more roll off his back. If you look at this as this swaggering West thing of like, he's going to do what he wants to do, the libertarian, although he would hate that term, but like, no, survival of the fittest, I'm going to be here, F you sort of thing. Like, that would be cool, but like, you needed to mature too, dude, because there were people that were putting your hands for this Collision show that, like, Brody King is a great example, and he'll deny it that he did it, but there are people that absolutely said he punched that wall after that with CM Punk. He's about to quit. He's lunging after Tony Khan. That's Samoa Joe, a dude who he's been doing business with for years, who's got to talk him down and get, like, if you know toilet paper fill, I'm not going to go with the ultra soft fill and all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to do that, but like, you should have been better than this.
And you know what?
Everybody's at fault, Stu.
Well, and I think that's the bottom line is there is a lot of blame to go around on this. Yes, Punk should have been, huh?
And the buck stops at number one, and that's Tony Khan, and maybe we get a change of that now.
We'll see. I mean, that's going to be I guess that's going to be the thing to watch. So, because like you said, this isn't over. We know that. What is CM Punk's next move? Does Does he lawyer up? Does he try to sue to get some of that compensation that he lost because it is termination with cause? Uh, you know, there is that. The other thing is, what is Punk's next move? There, obviously everybody's saying, oh, he's going to go back, he's going to go to WWE. Well, I don't think so. The kicker is we don't know what his contract had in it or any type of clause that's there. Now, again, simplistic thinking, I would say, okay, terminated with cause. The contract has been terminated. You would think that means all the terms of the contract. But then again, there could be a 30-day, 60-day non compete. Even if he gets terminated with cause, he can't appear with somebody else. Give me your, look into your crystal ball. Where do you see Punk making his next move?
I think you got to have a lawyer or you got to be represented in this somehow. Again, you got multiple contracts. One's obviously a former wrestler contract. That's where we talk about the, will it be 30, 60, 90 days? Is it a year? It depends on what the terms are when it comes to that termination, with cause. If that's, again, because I'm sure he may fight that. And then does it go to arbitration then? How does this get determined? Should he have been fired with cause? Should he have not have been? So that's going to be, because again, there's millions of dollars, I would assume, on the line here with the time that he had left on his contract and having multiples. Again, now you have a second one where, again, if this has got to deal with his medical and and again a whole part of the non wrestling side of things and is an employer employee thing. Again, to me that's an essential thing. Something is probably, that's why I don't think that this story is going to be over yet. Plus, we haven't heard really from the sides anyway, and there are plenty to hear from. I don't think WWE. I know you never say never with wrestling, and I was shocked when he went back as a Fox employee to do that FS1 post show, and I know WWE was not bullish on that. It could be done. I don't see it being beneficial to either side at this point. Not now. Maybe a year from now, 2 years from now. And even at that point, I don't know if you still got any juice in them. But look, fans are, they'll romanticize a lot of things. We see guys now come back all the time. So could he come back and not really have a great match but talk? That's enough for a lot of people these days. And you can do a 6-minute match at WrestleMania, which is smoke and mirrors, and is another 14 minutes of entrances and celebration, and you can absolutely do that. I don't think bringing him in now. Where does he fit? One of the best places he fits is with Cody. And do you? Uh,
Yeah,
Probably doesn't fit, and
well,
the other people, he's going to come back for the Rumble. Okay, and then what? And is he going to be happy doing that? Because here's the thing. He gets hurt a lot. And that was another thing, too, was how long was he? And there was another thing about him changing his ways to me, at least a little bit, and trying to be like truly the pro and running that thing was he gets hurt all the time, and it's not going to get any better. It's just one of those things now. The risk is going to be there. He broke his foot diving into the crowd. It just the triceps injury. It just, there is always something with him, and that's another reason why I thought, okay, this is going to be a little bit of a change because you got to look for stuff after this. He has got enough people in the music business, I'm sure, in the acting industry, where he can do projects he likes on his time, hang out with his dog and his wife, and she's doing her thing, and he can make appearances on heels. He can continue to work for a SAG card if that's what's in his future. And I think, to me, that makes more sense to me than being involved in wrestling because, yeah, unless it's WWE, where's he going to go? He can't work a G1. He can do a 1-4 show, sure. But they also work with AEW. Is that really going to jive? You know, he could work CMLL at Arena Mexico. Okay, he could do that once. Then what? You know, he beats Mystico or Ultimo Guerrero or whatever. It could be a thrill. It could be a fun thing. But, like, he doesn't have to be signed on for that and be in, you know, quote unquote wrestling for that. So Impact to me is not an option for a guy like him. NWA is certainly not an option for a guy like
Oh,
him. So you run out of spots.
yeah, I agree with you. I think this might be the last time we see CM Punk in a wrestling ring, at least for the foreseeable future.
He made it.
And
He made it entertaining. I mean, that's the one thing too about CM Punk is whether you like him or not, he popped AEW, and I know people on the other side of that don't like it, but like he made it interesting. He made it painful for a lot of people as well too. And if you're a fan of the other side, yeah, I mean, absolutely. But again, it's a loss, but also what happened over the weekend, I think that was cathartic for them. I think how that show went, how All Out went, how it with Orange Cassidy at the end, and it was like a big exhale. And I think for the fans, I think for the talent, I think for everybody, they just got it out. They went out there. Most of them had kick-ass matches. It was a really good show. It was a really great card, and the fans that were there the whole time, people wondered was it going to be like the '91 Bash. People can say we want Flair. You know, for the most part, everybody at the end of that was just happy to see a great wrestling show, and that's what they cared about. And I thought that was, again, that could be very important. You know, that could be, you know, as far as their vibes go and all that sort of thing. This is a nice place to turn the page. I'll say that. I'm out of words, Stu.
yeah, no, and I agree. Um, I think All Out, was like you said. I think it was a big exhale as a way to turn the page. Let's move forward. Um, you had the match with Orange Cassidy, John Moxley. Moxley finally ends that historic international title reign of Orange Cassidy. They gave Orange his flowers at the end there after Mox leaves with the Blackpool Combat Club. Uh, if I'm not mistaken, that was the only title change that we saw on All Out. Everybody else that had title matches, they kept their titles.
Yeah.
Um, what was the outside of what was your biggest surprise from All Out?
How great it's what a surprise, but it's just a great reminder of Brian Danielson, how great he is. Being hurt, knowing that, all the limitations of a strap match. You know, I grew up with Wahoo McDaniel having strap matches, and I know that there were Steamboat and Kernoodle had them with Steamboat and Youngblood, but those aren't on tape. I don't know how great they were. I know this was unlike any other strap match that I had ever seen. I was really surprised with how violent it was, how good it was, how great Danielson is again. He's a phenom to me. Takeshita going over Kenny Omega clean. I don't know. I wasn't surprised by that, but my takeaway is Takeshita is going to be in that mix real soon. You know, I think he is undeniable to be as a Muda type in the very. He's going to be in the top 4 mix here, you know, before long. I thought that match was really good, and I thought it was just another great performance by him. Other than that, really, there were no true surprises for me. You know, it's interesting to see where this MJF Cole thing goes. You know, how many ROH tag team title matches can you have to continue to build stories with? I don't know. I'm not against having one turn on the other. I think Cole should be the one to turn at this point, but I'm also okay with leaving both of them on the babyface side of the ledger if you can find somebody that can stand with Roddy and Taven and Bennett. where they can be a group, but they need a guy to be they need Damian Priest. They need somebody to be a force on the mic against those guys and to also be able to wrestle against those guys. Maybe not to the level that those three can, but at least being able to keep up with them. I don't know who that person is, but to me, that's one of the better scenarios as opposed to this Cole MJF tension thing going back and forth. One should turn on the other, but if it doesn't happen until next year, because this is working and you can get some other heels built up to go against both of them, I kind of like that idea more. That's me. I don't know.
I'm with you in the whole let's ride this MJ this better than you baby thing. Let's ride it as long as they can.
Joe, I mean, to me, because you have the
Yeah.
Grand Slam tournament coming up that's going to be there, and then you have, I mean, there's Full Gear too. Where does I mean, Joe's going to have a title match in there at some point. So it's like you can really, again, there is no need to put them against each other to me right now, at least. I'm sorry to cut you off,
Oh
but
no, that's
to me,
fine.
there's no reason to.
You're right. You got you like you got Full Gear coming up in November. You got Wrestle Dream, their new pay-per-view that's coming up on October 1st. Let me ask you this. You mentioned Takeshita and his win. Where do you see Kenny Omega going? Because he even mentioned it on, I guess he mentioned on BTE on Monday. He's had a string of pay-per-view losses now, and that includes, I think, now back-to-back losses to Takeshita. Where do you see him go from here?
It's interesting. You could do a Rocky 4 story with Takeshita and Omega because Omega can go back to where he came from. Hey, Don, guess what? I'm going back to Manitoba. And, here's me playing hockey as a goalie. Here's me doing karate and kickboxing. And I'm going to take the old log and I'm going to run up the snowy hill. That's what I'm going to do as your next generation of me. As you take him in and you look at the x rays and you do this, that, and whatever, you could tell to me that's a pretty good story to tell. And you can get Omega out of there for a little bit, by doing more cinematic things, around promos and things like that. To me, he's going to be part of January 4th. What's that match going to be? Do you go back to him and Osprey? That's what everybody would think, and that's what I'm thinking too. So you still have the Don Callis angle in there because of Osprey. So is it November at Full Gear with him and Takeshita? I think he's going to be on the outside of things, still floating around as Takeshita's doing things. We're not going to necessarily see Omega. Maybe we see him in a 6-man or so. But even then, to me, it feels like he should probably go for a bit and just kind of sit back and see where things go because I think his return to then finally beat Takeshita and get one over on Takeshita. And you know what, Don, I'm not only killing Takeshita, I'm killing Osprey all in the span of X amount of days or whatever it is. I don't know. I think that was probably what would work for me. Other than that, boy, it's tough because, with the title pictures all filled up, do you do something with the trios titles? Because look, the Young Bucks, to me, you need them in the tag mix, but again, in the 6-man mix, do people want to see, House of Black against the Elite again? I don't know how well it worked out the first time around, but you could have that as the Acclaimed has those titles. Then people are going to complain though, you're not doing enough with Kenny Omega. So it's
Right.
like you're almost damned if you do, damned if you don't. So I would be more voting to keep people wanting to see him and keeping him away, until you build up the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. One other thing from All Out, we had Hobbs and Miro. Miro gets the win. Powerhouse Hobbs attacks after the match. And then out of the blue, CJ Perry, the former Lana, shows up, stands up for her man, whacks Hobbs with the chair, which seemed like a mosquito bite. But Miro chases him off, and then Miro doesn't want to acknowledge CJ. I To me, as weird as it sounds, it CJ Perry showing up at All Out almost felt a little out of place. Like almost like she didn't really belong there. Give me your thoughts.
As much as he'll invoke his hot and flexible wife when talking about God and other such things in promos, we haven't seen any development of this storyline. And Brian, I know, hates it. To me, it just turned into a parody. It's like, when you have, here's Robert De Niro doing Robert De Niro of how somebody did him on Saturday Night Live. Like, it was almost becoming like the comedy portion of the proceedings because he's so good and he's so entertaining, and whatever he's saying is great as he fights his God. But it's like, he's not doing anything and we don't know where this is going. Like, what the hell is going on here? And so because of that, she just appears and it's like, and then he doesn't sell it. She's not real. This isn't real. It's like, did I miss a rampage? Was like, did you bring, Dark or Elevation back and I missed the segment? Like, what? Huh? And I don't know if that. To me, the match was great in that the fans obviously loved it, and I loved it in the fact that it is two dudes just hossing away at each other. But like, can we crap or get off the pot with Hobbs here? Because he should be a star by now, and he's not. Even more than Wardlow, Hobbs should be a star by now, and he's not. And what we got out of this was he could take an unprotected chair shot to the head. Good, we know that. But what's the deal? Because it went from he didn't want to respect Miro to now that heat was gone because now it's CJ Perry and Miro. So is Miro going to reject her and CJ is going to go with Hobbs? And where's God in all of this? What about Mother Nature?
Mm-hmm.
Has she weighed in on what's going on? So I don't know. And that's the problem is with the whole Miro storyline. Everybody wants to see him. They love him. They love seeing him kill people, all that stuff. But like, dude, like I don't, and again, part of it may be him with his creative and stuff like that, but like, come on. And again, that's where they lost the plot to me a little bit coming out of that match, but the match itself was great.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fantastic. Just two big guys just beating the snot out of each other. I was fantastic, but yeah, and I'm with you.
Louis Cosell,
Yeah,
the chicks take the long ball. There's always a spot for Austin about.
yeah. It was just the CJ Perry thing just felt out of place, and I didn't know where they were going. So anyway, let's get to WWE Payback. It was your I think it felt like a more standard WWE PLE, if they as they like to call it.
Go ahead and call it a B show. Used to call
Yeah,
it B
it
show.
was. It was. It wasn't bad.
No.
Uh, the one thing that we've been seeing this over the last several months seems like every time they do a premium live event, we get a press release that says it's the highest grossing so and so, and it's beat merchandise records. This I mean, it's almost as big of a joke as Tony Khan and his big announcements. Give me your thoughts on that.
it's this is what they do. This is what they do. And you'd be amazed on how many like press releases and ESPN will put out about things. You got to go to like the portal, I forget what the
Mhm.
gimmick was called, where they have all that stuff and it's like that's just what they do. And now because everything is content and click based and quick and WWE breaks record. Again, a lot of this, which is good
Mhm.
for the stock too, because like we would be talking on Observer Live, or we'd be talking like this about how bad the creative is. Like if anybody saw this, if anybody knew how bad this was, and yet the stock keeps rising, but they're throwing like, yo, YouTube in India, we got a trillion hits, and like all. So it works,
Yeah.
and right now with AEW, again, it's a little just more of the poking out the chest of this is what we break records. This is all we do with TKO and the UFC. We just keep breaking records after records. And I don't want to say it's a phase, but I I think at some point it will level. But as far as the big events, especially the big events, your WrestleManias, or if they go to a new market like that, they're going to beat the band on all that sort of stuff. I think it's just the era that we're in, and again, some of it I think subsides, but right now, there's a lot of that poking the chest out, and this is what it is, especially leading into you got media rights deals coming up all over the world. You have the TKO stock, which is going to, all of that stuff. So I think once all that's over with, maybe it's less. I think it probably is going to be a little bit less, but I, you know, that's just what they do. They're the industry leader in that. And AEW, it's not like they haven't done the same thing. I mean, they send out press releases as well. They just don't happen to be as usually as bold fonted as some of WWE's are.
Yeah, that's true. Let me ask you this: we did have a title change as Finn Balor, Damian Priest from Judgment Day. They beat Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn to win the tag titles. Was this the right time to switch the tag titles?
I think so. I was on the fence about this. I was saying no because, I thought coming out of this with JD McDonough, it was a matter of how they played and the way Rhea was really on them about, okay, if we don't all come out of this with gold, we're going to reset this thing. So I thought, okay, well, here could be a way that this thing gets reset somehow, but they obviously didn't do that. And I guess one of the reasons why not, I guess I know Judgment Days works. And do you want to screw this up right now? Damian Priest is going to be a babyface star no matter what. At some point, as long as he doesn't get hurt, I don't think any shine comes off him if you treat him, respectfully. It's like Drew McIntyre or Bobby Lashley. Like, he's kind of, I think, getting into that tier where if you don't screw it up, he's going to be pretty resilient, even if you beat him. So, to me, keep them together, acclimate, put JD McDonough in there. Obviously, Dominic Mysterio is doing a lot of stuff in NXT. It's not like JD McDonough can't go back down there and do that too. Is there are to me, if you're selling this much merchandise, if it's working this well, if it you think there's any point it could damage Rhea, with any of it, that's the only way I pull the plug on it. But I think she's another one. She's a star. She's one of the biggest stars they have right now, period, point blank. So you don't want to do anything that's going to damage her, too. So Mysterio works with her. She works again, she has usurped Finn Balor as the axis of that group. So to me, there's a lot you can do with this, especially Damian Priest as the champion, JD McDonough, and Finn Balor as. Can you imagine their work as tag team champions? Can you imagine them facing the Street Profits or facing the Viking Raiders or facing whoever? I mean, that's a hell of a combination. Them in the mix against Giovanni Vinci and Kaiser. I like all that sort of stuff. And then, have Dominic Mysterio be that bastard and be the guy who can go out there and get beat up and get the cheap heat and all that sort of stuff. I see why they want to keep them together. It makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does make sense. Judgment Day is, I mean, if anything, they've kind of filled that void that was left when you break up the bloodline. So now just it's almost like wash, rinse, repeat.
And
Just do it with the Judgment Day.
there's the thing too is I don't think anybody really expected Cody Rhodes to announce Jey Uso to be on Raw, and then okay, now you got the Sammy thing in, and you see how they're playing Jey, where Drew doesn't like him because he had to deal with the bloodline. Riddle doesn't like him because he has to deal with the bloodline. Who wasn't there on Monday night? Oh, Kevin Owens.
That's
So I can see why the belts came off that way because, again, if you look at that as the drama portion of the proceedings, where you really don't even necessarily need a belt, and they certainly do not when it comes to all that sort of stuff, there you go.
yeah, you're right. Um, so Jey Uso returns. You just mentioned that. Now he's on Raw. You got Jimmy Uso on SmackDown. In fact, they promoted him and Jimmy and AJ Styles this Friday night on SmackDown on Fox. I mean, look, this brand split died like 3 weeks after it was implemented.
Always.
Because yeah, that's just the way they do it. I When do you think we see Jimmy and Jay finally come head to head?
I guess it depends on what you want to do with Survivor Series and how you play that, because you could have if you're doing one Raw versus SmackDown and you do a Roman and Solo and Jimmy and two people against Cody and Jay and Sammy and two people, you could do something like that there, and then probably the Royal Rumble. To me, that would make some sense to do it there. I don't know. You could obviously drag it out to WrestleMania if you wanted to, if you really wanted to. And again, if you had a story to do that where everybody reunites at the end or whatever, I guess you could, but to me, because he's on Raw and you got SmackDown and there's going to be somebody who goes over, and that could be, again, that's going to play into some storylines, you would think, unless it's, I don't think they're going to send over Dexter Loomis or something. Like, I'm sure somebody, I would have, I shouldn't assume when it comes to WWE, but I would figure it's going to be somebody you can plug into like a real storyline mix there. So, Survivor Series, maybe to start setting something up, but then again to try to keep this again, but again, I don't know. Who knows what story they're going to play with Roman Reigns and if that bleeds in? Because again, to me, I'm too traditionalist. With my clock is going, well, okay, we'll start Cody up around January, and this is how we're going to get to WrestleMania with Cody and Roman. But their timeline and all this sort of stuff may be dramatically different.
Yeah, I get you. By the way, so I've got NXT on the television, and they just made this announcement. So breaking news: Tiffany Stratton will defend the NXT Women's title next week against Becky Lynch.
I'm the winner there. I'm the
Yeah,
winner.
are you?
I am. And I know people were talking to this on Observer Live today. People would be upset that they didn't advertise Becky. Don't worry. Tiffany Stratton and Becky is going to be good, and I have a feeling, you can do Becky and Kiana James. There's other people you can do down there if you wanted to have her for a couple more shows, but I love Tiffany Stratton. I've loved her since day one. I really have. I thought she was a great blue chip when they got her. There's a lot of women who do gymnastics, but there were very few. As again, the whole package that she had and the fact that she picked everything up so quickly. The problem is she has absolutely hit a wall.
Yeah.
She's hit a wall personality wise. She has never been great on promos. That's why a lot of them have been backstage. But again, a lot of it's the verbiage that they can't help but load on all of these poor, men and women. It's completely ridiculous. But the fact is, that's how it goes. So you got to get better in the ring. You got to start showing improvement. You got to go better with promos. And if anybody can pull all that out of you, it's going to be Becky Lynch, because for a long time, soft-spoken Irish girl, she couldn't cut a promo. That's what they said. She couldn't physically do this or that. Hey, and look where she's at right now. So Stratton's got to step up, or she is going to be passed by at some point. And WWE's already loaded with women, with Io and Asuka and Bianca and Charlotte and Rhea. Bailey. They're loaded. So if you can't crack in there, Zoe Stark can work. For anything anybody would want to say about her, at least her and Shayna as a team, I think would be great. I think that's a great use of both of them as far as just being badasses coming out the gym. Like, you can do something with that in this era of these women banging with each other. Like, Tiffany Stratton's got to step up. This is a great opportunity, and it's going to be a big light because, unless otherwise noted, Becky Lynch has been a big draw. We'll see what she can do with NXT, but everybody else, if Dominic can draw, it'll be very interesting to see what happens here with Becky Lynch going down there.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think they take the title off of Stratton, put it on Lynch?
Possible. Look, the way they have played it up where Becky has not won it, and if they think they can get some juice out of that for a couple of weeks before the belt moves to, because here's the thing. what kills Roxanne Perez is there's nobody for her to work with. And I was so bullish on her working with B Priestley with help me with the name now.
Oh,
Who her champion.
Blair Davenport.
Blair Davenport.
Yes.
And they went right to the gimmicks right off the bat. They went to a lot of brawling, and it was like they never. That was to me like that could have been the best match Roxanne Perez could have had, and they didn't have it. Like Becky Lynch working with Roxanne Perez, putting her over. I think that would be awesome in a babyface encounter. I think that could be a big deal, and anybody that Becky were to put over could be a big deal. Now, to me, it also has to tie in with the main roster because she can't just take an L to somebody down there unless because again, I don't know who the anointed person is right now. It's Tiffany. Could they swap the belt back and forth? They could absolutely do that, but I don't know. I think I'm probably overthinking it when it comes to Becky winning that belt and being down there instead of maybe Tiffany not winning the match but getting away with the belt. But if Tiffany has a bad match, do you come back with Becky again and have her win so she can win that belt as opposed to Stratton, preventing her from winning the belt, and then we have a rematch of this on the main roster?
Yeah, I think you're right. They've had Tiffany Stratton. They feature her on, I think it was on SmackDown last week, and they had her on Raw, I think, a couple weeks ago. So this might be one of those things like it's either you sink or swim when it comes to this. So could
Ugh.
be a good test for Stratton.
And that's Shawn Michaels' philosophy. He's talked about that with the
Yeah,
sink or swim. And, he brought it up with Gable. I just don't think Stratton's ready for every day of this,
no,
but I could be wrong. You know what? But also, Raquel Rodriguez was not ready either. But then again, she also has a character that's not based on having to stand in the ring and talk for 15, 20 minutes. Again, Stratton's not great with that. And then in the ring, she can do some good things. And with those other women, she'll probably, again, well, she'll find her water level, being in with those other women. But still, it's a lot. That's a lot to put on her and a lot to ask for somebody that to me has plateaued and did so quite some time ago, unfortunately, in NXT.
yeah. Uh, Gunther goes over to Chad Gable. He will become the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion, surpassing the Honky Tonk Man. This is kind of that endeavor that we have heard to modernize the record books because apparently we don't like anything more than 5 years old. Um, so let me ask you, which, I mean, it'd probably be hard to kind of come up, off the top of your head, but which title reign do you see next to get modernized?
I mean, in theory, you could do it with Roman. It's just
But
how long can you, again,
that means you're going to have Roman Reigns hold that Universal title until 2028.
well, can he pass Hogan at least? How long would it take to pass Hogan's 4-year run? Because he's at 3 and change now, right?
Yeah, I mean, he could, I
Because
guess.
if you're trying to erase to that level, and then Bruno is your Inoki, is kind of your god. You can't. Okay, nobody's ever
Yeah,
beaten the 7 year sort of thing. So they could do that. I mean, they have when they've done this stuff in the past. To me, it always struck me as kind of I don't want to say petty, but they were always on the outs with somebody. When they were on the outs with The Rock being the youngest champion of all time, it became Brock Lesnar, and then Brock Lesnar was on the outs, and then it was Randy Orton, and then with the title history when AJ Lee had it, and then it was, again they at the very least they're going to skip her because they're on the outs right now. I The tag titles, unfortunately, aren't built for that. I mean, I don't. The longest reign. I mean, you're talking to a lot of them are 6 months, even in the olden days. But I'm sure there's been over a year. I don't think they could help themselves. I mean, actually, is it the Usos?
yeah. Usos have the
The
longest
Usos
reign, so
already
that
got
one,
it. They already modernized that one.
yeah, that one's
What's
up to
what's
date.
left then? So Gunther's got it. We can't really do it with the world title. I guess it comes to the women's title, I guess, at that point. And again, when you take the Moolah thing out of the mix, I'd have to go and look, but you could, I guess, in theory, do that because you have two women's title belts. You know
Possible.
that you could do that. I think, I guess that would be the most important thing, probably in that case, because you've got the world title and the IC title. Tag title's already been done by the Usos. It would be the women's championship, and I think, again, I'd have to go back and see what it is, but with having two title belts, you could absolutely do that if you wanted to.
Yeah.
The same way they essentially were doing it with Roman. So, yeah, absolutely. I think if you're going to do it with any of them, that's the one.